Well, in light of what's going on in the country right now and a lot of the reforms that are being called for, a lot of the property that gets destroyed, monuments defaced, statues taken down, let's break down exactly why there's probably a lot of people who wonder, right? Like, a lot of these reforms that some people want, certain policies that would just help the average guy, how come we can't seem to get these things done? How come it's always right-wing agendas that get through? Well, the obvious reason is because that's what the special interests have paid for, and so that's what they want to get. But some people wonder, well, how do these politicians just keep getting elected and elected and elected and elected and elected over and over and over and over and over and over and over again? Honestly, I think I've kind of come to a realization, and I don't really think it's as complicated as many people think that it is. Here's the way you've got to look at this. This is why left-wing policies tend to not get through, aside from the fact that the corporate special interests don't want them. And that's because a lot of the people are utterly disorganized. Here's what I mean by that. So you've got a group of people. I would say we're probably split into about 4 columns. You've got a group of people on the right who vote right. Okay, they're solid red. Now, some you might be able to reason with, others you might not be able to. But here's what a lot of them tend to have a more or less consensus on about people on the left. What they believe about people on the left is that they're a bunch of unhinged snowflake lunatics. That you get nothing from the left. They're an everybody wants a trophy type of group. And that's not actually true, because now you've got people on the left who say that no one should get a trophy. Instead of everyone should get a trophy, no one should get a trophy, basically. Okay, so now that's a big unanimous, kind of opinion from a lot of the right about people on the left. That they don't like America. They want to hurt the country. They don't have good intentions in mind, and they're just out to destroy. So understand that's where a lot of right-wing people are at coming into this entire situation. Then you've got some people who are kind of middle of the road, and they see some right-wing points that they can agree with. They see some left-wing points that they can agree with. They're kind of, what would you call it? Independent, okay? Now, they sit right along the fence, and they kind of see some validity in arguments from both sides, okay? Then you've got some folks on the left who want to see reforms and don't quite want to take it to violent measure, but at the same time, they then condone the other group of people on the left who do take it to such measures, who are damn near borderline anarchists if they're not full anarchists. And this one group kind of makes apologies for this group who does come in and tear a town up, who does come in and pull statues down and they don't even live in that town, who does all these things, and this other group then makes apologies for it. And when you make the case, okay, by enabling this, you're also going to enable other groups to do the same thing later on, and the only thing they can seem to tell you is, well, that's not what this group is doing. What? So fucking what? There's another group that's going to, well, that's another group. And so you're going to condone everyone to just do that at will and let law apply whenever you deem it necessary to apply. That's not what laws are, my man. Laws are there 24/7. And as long as they don't violate your human rights, they should be followed 24/7. And if you insist you're going to break the law, then you need to understand if they lock your ass up, I mean, you kind of had that coming. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. I mean, that's kind of basic. Don't sit around and go break the law and then bitch when you get the consequences for breaking the law. If you really have that much of a problem with it, don't do it. Also, remember, if it's not in your town, it's really not your fucking concern. If you don't like it, don't go to the town. No one's twisting your arm with a gun to your head and making you go look at it. So if you don't like it, don't go. That's just simple as that, okay? But here's the thing. Because you've got this divide, remember, you've got one group on the left who doesn't go out and physically do these things, but they will then make apologies for the other group. Therefore, what happens at the end of the day? The right-wingers sit back and use that as a perfect talking point. They now have the right to sit back and say, look, that is who is on the left. We have to keep these people from taking power. They speak to a lot of those borderline voters. They speak to the older generation who doesn't like what they're seeing out of the youth. Okay? They want to see things go back to the way they used to be. Okay? They're speaking to those people, and if you're wondering why it resonates, that's exactly why it resonates. People do not like what they see on the horizon, and they don't like what they see from the overall group on the left. And so here's what you end up with. You've got left-wingers, again, who want Medicare for all and things of that nature. And what they fail to realize is when they make apologies for people who go out there and break the law to try and get what they want, okay, when you apologize for that, it depends on what you're doing. So when they break the law to stand in the middle of the road and protest, nothing was hurt, nothing was damaged. When they burn down a building, on the other hand, some left-wingers sit there and say, oh, insurance is going to pay for it. You're full of shit, okay? If the insurance does pay for it, guys' premiums just went up. And not only his, but again, everyone in that area's premiums are going to go up because the insurance company has now deemed this as a higher risk. So now everyone's having to pay more because of what happened. So, yeah, someone got hurt. Maybe not physically, but financially, they're having to pay more to keep their business open because of what you did. So, and again, if you come in from out of town and go defacing a statue or ripping it down, or even just spray profanity all over the place, what if there was families in that community that you might not have lived in? Now, some people, I'm not saying not every protester doesn't live in a town. I'm sure there's a lot of them who do. But if you're coming in from out of town to do things like that, and the town did not consent for you to come in and rip that statue down or spray fuck the police all over it, what if that was a town, gathering place? People like to go to that particular downtown area where that statue was erected at. For example, there's a statue in downtown Spartanburg erected to Daniel Morgan, and it's in an area called Daniel Morgan Square, basically, right? And Daniel Morgan Avenue, okay? That's downtown Spartanburg. People go there all the time. People go there with their kids. And you just spray painted this shit all over the place. And you think they want their kids wanting to read on something if their kids are old enough to understand what it's saying. And some might very well be, but they might only be like maybe 8 or 9. And you think they want them to go out there and say, pigs can suck my dick, fuck the police. You think they want them reading shit like that, man? No. So you brought your happy motherfucking ass in from out of town and did this shit to a fucking town you don't even live in. This is something that town is to decide. I said this on Twitter tonight, okay? If a motherfucker were to walk in my house and tell me that there was a particular item in my house that they didn't like for whatever the reason, and that I should get rid of it, and when I don't, they try to go over and remove it themselves, you might be escorted out of my front door looking down a gun barrel. Period. You don't walk in my house and tell me what the fuck I can't have. You don't go to somebody else's town and tell them what they can't have. That's part of being able to live in your own town, right? So the point is, when you make apologies for people doing it, even if you're saying, well, I wouldn't do it myself, but I understand their reasoning and this and that. No. If the town wants it down, let them take it down. Okay, but here's the point. When they see all this, here's what you're going to understand. This is what you're going to get out of this situation, right? And this is where the left always makes their big mistake, is when they condone the actions of the more radical groups in their left-wing party, okay? When they condone that, this is nothing but wildfire fuel for Republicans and right-wingers, because they sit there and they say, see, these people do not love this country. They don't have an appreciation for the freedoms in this country. They just want to tear everything apart. They want to change us as a society. They think we're absolutely terrible. And all the right-wingers go, yeah! And a lot of those in the middle voters who don't agree with what you're doing sit there and say, okay, yeah, I mean, I would like health care and some police reform too, but you fuckers are nuts. And then they don't come out and vote for you. Meanwhile, on the left, while you're tearing down statues and tearing apart buildings and not educating yourself well enough to go out and vote properly, you keep getting fucking Joe Bidens. Woo! And you wonder why nothing is changing, because that's where you're focusing all your enthusiasm and your attention. Let me say this about as nicely as I possibly can. You think Joe Biden gives a happy fat rat's ass about what you're doing to a fucking statue? No! The only people you're going to bother with that are people who think you're going too far and you're going to fracture anyone from wanting to align themselves with you because they think you're fringe radical nuts. Now here's the proof of this. On my channel, on David Sparia's channel, on Israel's channel, Big Talk Little Talk, on the Kim Iverson show, on Frank Analysis, you've heard a lot of us advocate for single-payer health care. You've heard all of us advocate for police reform. You've heard us talk about how we want all these things. Got news for you. It goes even to even bigger channels. A lot of them say they want these things. But what else have we noticed? We've got folks like the Bitter Pill and Frank Analysis who will defend what's going on with these statues. Yet you've got myself, Kim Iverson, David Sparia, the political refugee now, and Israel from Big Talk Little Talk, okay? All of us on this side say, no, we don't agree with what you're doing. Split. Split, split, split. You just created divide. We were all in unison. Police reform, go for it. Medicare for all for it. Let's just go tear some shit down in a community. Ooh. You just divided it. You divided it. Period. And again, you're trying to make excuses for some as if that excuse applies to everyone. No, there are some people who are probably just doing it because they enjoy the thrill of tearing shit up. Others might actually be doing it because they seriously want something to come down. Here's a problem I've got with the argument, though, about how they should be torn down because people aren't educated enough. Well, if they're not educated enough, then how do they know what you know? Not all of them are YouTubers. Okay? So by that argument that they're not educated enough, then they're probably at least a few of them who are just doing it for the fucking thrill of it, right? Because they're not educated enough to know what a George Washington, a King Leopold, a fucking Christopher Columbus, or all these other people. They don't really know what they did, right? So why are they tearing it down if they're not educated enough to really know what they did? So when you apologize for the people who are doing this because you've seen their reasoning and you don't tell them basically, no, you need to go about this the legal way, you then set the precedent for them to continue to allow other protesters, because this group got what they wanted, I want what I want because I feel an oppression from blah, 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 name your fucking problem, okay? They're going to want the same things to be done. Are you going to roll over for each and every group? Because now you might as well just take the rule of law and just say fuck it and throw it out the window. That's exactly what's going to happen. And as long as you're rolling over and basically telling the rule of law that it can just sit on the sidelines, we'll call for you when we want you, a right-winger is going to take that and run with it. A right-winger is going to take that and say, these people are crazy. They're crazy. They want to take us back in time. They don't believe in any kind of law. They want to just do away with the police. They want to just turn us into an anarchist society. We're going to be a case of the inmates running the asylum. Sure enough, if you let these people take power, and a lot of those swinging people right on the middle who said, okay, yeah, there's a problem here with the police. It should be addressed. But then they saw what you said, and they hear Donald Trump, and he comes out and says, look, I want police reform too. I've signed an executive order. I've done this. I've done that. But I'm not going to side with those people. Those people are crazy, and here's why. And they're all going to start going, yeah, it kind of makes a point, I guess, doesn't he? Likewise, the same thing's going to be said for those Joe Biden people. If it's not to Trump, that's why you're never going to pull the Democratic Party to your left-wing agendas, because the people like Joe Biden's are going to be able to pull some of those swing Democrat voters their direction if this is what your left-wing candidate's going to stand on. Because now it's not an issue of just giving the people what they need. You're not just running on that anymore. You're now starting to get into territory that gets real controversial. And there's not a lot of controversy in helping the average guy have a better way of life. When you start tearing things apart as a way to try to get your point across, people are going to look at that and say, I don't know if I'm with all that or not. Something, that just doesn't set too well with me. You take a lot of those swing voters, you alienate them. They're either going to go to Joe Biden and you'll never get your more progressive candidates, or you wind up with more Republicans or Republican light. Understand, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get Republican or Republican light, because there's going to be a unified front on the Republican side. Okay, and likewise, there's going to be those swing voters who are not going to agree with going too far. And when you, the voice of reason there on the left, sides with this group instead of upholding the rule of law, the right-wingers come in, they talk their talk, they win those swing voters, you get right-wing agendas. So by the end of this, you get no Medicare for all, you get no universal basic income, and you get more fucking Republicans with a town torn up. Enjoy.